Bo sir, வணக்கம் sir.
Others, kindly mute your microphones. Please, we can hear an echo.
Good morning. எப்படி கேக்குதுங்களா? பேசுறது கேக்குதுங்களா?
Sir, kindly unmute your microphone.
Hello. Hello.
Sir, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Others, general instructions to everybody, all the attendees of today's session is kindly mute your microphones when the speaker is speaking. Ensure the microphones are on mute. Abhinav, sir, kindly mute your microphone.
நான் பேசும்போது அது கேக்குது இல்ல, அது கேட்க கூடாதுங்க. அது கேட்டா எனக்கு எக்கோ ஆகும்.
To all the attendees of today's session, if you have any queries that you would like to raise to Dr. Kasthurirangan, you may put it on the chat with the host, and we will consolidate these questions, and at the further end of the session, these questions will be raised.
Participants.
Repeat my instructions to all the attendees of today's session. Kindly mute your microphones when the speaker is addressing. And if you have any questions that you would like to ask the speaker, you may put it on the chat box to the host. At the end of the session, your questions will be raised. Thank you, everybody. A very good morning to everyone who have joined today's session. A general instruction from my end. Kindly mute your microphones when the speaker is addressing today's session. And also, if you have any queries that you would like to post to the speaker, kindly post it in the chat box, and we'll finally consolidate those questions and raise it at the end of the session. Thank you, everyone.
A warm and pleasant morning to one and all present here for this great session, and it's my privilege to welcome the guest of the day, Dr. Batma Vibhushan Kasthurirangan sir. Right?
Participants, kindly keep your microphones muted and your videos enabled, please. Kindly enable your videos and mute your microphones. Students and other attendees of today's session, if you have any questions for Dr. Kasthurirangan, you may post it at the chat box, in the chat box, and it will be consolidated. And at the end of the session, the questions will be raised. So in the midway of the session, please don't unmute your microphones and raise questions. Kindly maintain decorum. Thank you, everybody. Attendees of today's session, kindly mute your microphones and please enable your video and post your questions in the chat box if you have any. I request all the attendees to mute your microphones and enable your video, please. If you have any questions, kindly post it at the chat box to the host. A very good morning once again to everybody gathered here. Kindly mute your microphones and please enable your video. If you have any questions that you want to raise to the guest speaker of the day, you may post it in the chat box to the host.
Hello, good morning to all of you. Are you able to hear?
So, very good morning, sir.
A very good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Final instructions to all the attendees of today's session. Kindly mute your microphones and please enable your videos. If you have any questions that you would like to raise to Dr. Kasthurirangan here, you may post it at the chat box and finally it will be consolidated and it will be raised at the end of the session. Attendees of today's session, having some disturbance, kindly mute your microphone and please enable your video.
நான் பேசும்போது
I request you to mute
நீங்க
your
ஸ்பீக்கர்
microphone.
இது பண்ணிடுங்க.
Thank you, everybody. Please ensure that your microphones are on mute during the session. You can raise your questions through the chat box with the host, the guest of the day. Last and final instructions to all the attendees of today's session. Kindly mute your microphones and please ensure to enable your videos. If you do have any questions that you would like to pose to Dr. Kasthurirangan, you may put it in the chat box with the host. Thank you, everybody. A very good and blessed morning to all the attendees of the session on highlights of NEP 2020. I'm profusely elated to take this opportunity to introduce guest speaker of the day. Padma Vibhushan Dr. Krishnasamy Kasthurirangan is currently Chancellor, Central University of Rajasthan, Chairman, Governing Board, Inter-University Center for Astronomy and Astrophysics, Chairperson, NIIT University, Nimrata Member, Atomic Energy Commission, Emeritus Professor at National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bangalore, and Honorary Distinguished Advisor, Indian Space Research Organization. Earlier, as Chairman of RO, he oversaw the space program of India between the years 1994 and 2003. He was a member, Upper House of the Indian Parliament in 2003 to 2009, and later member of the erstwhile Planning Commission 2009 to 2014. More recently, he was the chairman of the draft committee of the New National Education Policy 2020. Dr. Kasthurirangan is a member of all the 4 national science academies and several international academies. He is a member of the International Astronomical Union and a fellow of the World Academy of Sciences. He is the honorary fellow of the Cardiff University, UK, and academician of the Pontifical Academy of Sciences, Vatican City. Dr. Kasthurirangan is the only Indian to be conferred the honorary membership of the International Academy of Astronautics, besides being its vice president from 2003 to 2005. He has won several awards, including Brock Medal in 2004, LMDM Memorial Award in 2004, Theodor von Karman Award in 2007, and Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar in 1983, among others. He has been conferred with the highest civilian honors, Padma Shri in 1982, Padma Bhushan in 1992, and Padma Vibhushan in 2000 by the President of India. The Rajyotsava Prashasti 2014 from Government of Karnataka, and Award of Officer of the Legion d'Honneur in 2002 by the President of the French Republic, France. Let's take a look at a short introductory video on the man behind New Education Policy 2020. Satya. I request all the attendees of today's session once again kindly please mute your microphones and enable your videos. There's a lot of disturbance. Kindly mute your microphones, everybody. Kindly mute your microphones. Thank you for joining us. Please mute your microphones, everybody. Thank you. I now cordially invite Mr. Abhinav Chandra, Managing Director of International School, to welcome the attendees to today's session.
A warm and a pleasant morning to one and all present here for this great session. And it's really a privilege and a honor and a pleasure in welcoming the guest of the day, Padma Vibhushan, Dr. Krishnaswamy Kasthurirangan sir, the former head of the Indian Space Research Organizations, and recently the chairman of National Education Policy, which our nation has been looking for the last 3 decades. And sir, a wholehearted gratitude first before welcoming you, and my welcome for this great session as well. And I think no any great introduction has been needed for you, because you are proven by your skills. What I just wanted to put and by stating you is I'm just remembering what happened on July 13, 2003, when the former the president of South Africa is Nelson Mandela sir said, education is one of the most largest weapon which can be used to change the world. And I think you are really blessed by the Almighty to head such kind of committee, the National Education Policy, and we are most privileged and thankful to have you for this session as well. And followed by our guest of the day, I would like to welcome our beloved chairman and my mentor, who always believes in that education makes one's life is complete. And I welcome you, Dr. C. Chandran, for this great session. And followed by Dr. C. Chandran, I'm just welcoming, I'm extending my note of welcome to Advocate Samidurai sir, who's the former president of the Indian Lawyers Association, and who very much, take care of the society, especially to the most underprivileged people, who fights for the rights of the most underprivileged people. I'll welcome you on the board, Advocate Samitra sir. Followed by Advocate Samidurai, I'm just welcoming Mr. Tiruchunduran. I'm sorry, Dr. Tiruchunduran, who has been traveling with a former president, APJ Abdul Kalam sir, and is a chairperson of Vision 2020, and making coming true all the dreams of former president APJ Abdul Kalam sir. I welcome you, Tiruchandran sir. Followed by that, I'm just welcoming Mr. Bose, ATB Bose, the Secretary of Association of Management of Private Schools, who's been the guiding soul for all the private schools, and who shows a very keen and equal interest in the development of all the stakeholders of the school. I welcome you on both sir. And I'm just welcoming Sujata Guptan, the Director Academics of Tunmira International School and the founding principal of Tunmira International School, who's been a very keen instrumental in organizing this session. And I think that this is going to be a Pongal fest for all the stakeholders who's being part of the session as well. And I'm also extending my note of welcome to all the correspondents, principals of various other institutions. And last but not the least, I'm just welcoming the pillars of our school, my dear teachers, and my dear students as well. And again, before I'm just winding up, I just wanted to put my note of gratitude to the guest of the day, Dr. Kasthurirangan sir, for accepting our invitation to present for this session. And thank you all, and Jai Hind.
A much awaited moment is here. A big round of applause, Dr. Krishnasamy Kasthurirangan. Over to you, sir. So kindly unmute your microphone. Sir, kindly unmute your microphone, sir. We are not able to hear you.
Karthik Somasekar. I would like to specially mention her because she is a very determined person that she won't give up a no to a no and made sure that I'm here today. And esteemed teachers who are here today, dear students, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I should thank the management for giving me this privilege of interacting with you today on this important occasion. It's the first time probably that I am meeting a set of school people, children in the new year. So I use this opportunity to wish all of you a very happy and successful 2021. Tomorrow also happens to be a Makara Sankranti day when the sun transits into the north, and it's a very, very auspicious for most of the South Indians. And therefore, I use this opportunity also to wish each one of you the very best in the coming year on all the work that you undertake this in your the progress of life. I was just going through the details of your school, the Queen Mira International School. It's a school with a very and modern concept of training the minds of the youngsters. It is purely not the question of learning lessons and rote learning, as you may like to call it, and then trying to spit it out in the examination from memory. So that is not the concept of the school. There are many other dimensions to the schooling, the background that the school gives as an experience for the children to face them with confidence, the future of life. So all these aspects of it, I was just going through many parts of it, the extracurricular activities, tie up with international schools, tie up with the national colleges for in terms of higher education and planning, and then of course making ultimately the students with, as an all-rounded person to face the challenges of life, which really makes the life interesting and exciting. So I would like to compliment the school and its management for this kind of planning in the schooling. And this is, in a sense, the way in which we have looked at the new modern policy on the education to make sure that we create all-rounded persons rather than trying to prepare you for an examination for a particular job at that particular time and then suddenly find yourself that you are not relevant at a later part of the life. So this is being avoided, and your school has foreseen many of these kind of a thing. So I would like to compliment this school for this. The other part of it, of course, is the fact that this policy, NEP 2020, National Education Policy 2020, it had, it comes after nearly 30 years of the previous policy. The government thought at this time, the present government, that we should look at the educational system that we have in this country, primarily because of the fact that much has changed both within the country as well as the world with respect to knowledge and the gaining of accessing the knowledge, utilizing the knowledge, application of knowledge with respect to the development and many other purposes. This entire system has undergone major transformation in the last 30 and odd years when the previous policy was in operation. So the government thought that we should have a new policy, new look at the whole way in which India has to now address the education for the future. And this came in the mind of the Minister of Education at that particular time, Mr. Javadekar, who then asked many of us, and I was asked to chair this particular committee to look at what the new education system has to be. And he told me one thing, that this policy should be valid at least for 20 years. That means 2 decades from the day it comes into operation, this policy should be valid. And second thing is with fine tuning, which should be even applicable for another 10 years. That means virtually the span for this particular policy should be has been 30 years, which essentially means that you have to really look at what India would be in the next 30 years, how the world will be in the next 10. After all, we are staying in a globalized world. So these are the kind of a thing. So there was an imperative that we look at all these aspects with respect to the new policy. That that is what we came to this thing. Now, what are the important parameters that we guided us in this connection? First, of course, is that India will have the highest population of young people now in the next decade. In fact, 50% of the youngsters will be below 35 years. They all aspire for quality education. The demographic dividend has to be taken advantage. So that is one of the key elements that drove the policy with respect to its objectives of formulation. The second, the globalization and demands of a knowledge economy and the knowledge society call for emphasis on the need for acquisition of new skills by learners on a regular basis. This is not just a one-shot process, and for them to learn how to learn and become lifelong learners, a critical consideration to be addressed appropriately. Changes in knowledge landscape, especially science and technology advances like big data analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, all demand skilled workforce involving mathematics, computer science, data science, as well as multidisciplinary abilities across sciences, social sciences, and humanities. So these are the kind of broad framework which we have to address with respect to how to make this policy an effective one in deference to the wishes of the Honorable Minister, who said that we should have a policy applicable for next 20 years. Therefore, what does the policy really focus on? The policy provides an integrated and flexible approach to education. Further, it has kept the interconnectedness of the various phases of education in mind and how the same will enable continuity, coherence, and processes to ultimately realize an end-to-end educational roadmap for the country. In particular, the policy aims at the development of the 21st century skills for students while giving enough flexibility in making choices consistent with the demand dynamics of a knowledge society. So what I will try to say in the context of the policies related to the school education is to bring in this through a few key policy points, which is really more in the context of what is the spirit of this policy, not so much as the details of the policy, which you can always see it in the 400-page document or the abbreviated 60-page document. The principle behind this kind of a policy formulation. The first principle that I would like to say is the purpose and aim of education is what energizes the education system. So the education system, I would like to say, is really driven by what the energizing of the entire education system is the purpose and aim of the education itself. Proper understanding of these purposes and aims lead to clarity on all elements of the education. This policy clearly commits to the aim and purpose of education to be the development of good human beings, a good society, and a strong and vibrant nation. The word good here implies that the individual has the capacities to think independently and deeply, to engage with fellow human beings, and empathy and compassion are the driving factors. The ethical capacities to reason right from wrong and good from bad, and to be economically independent and productive. These are the other facets of a good individual. The purpose of education is informs all choices in our education system, ranging from curriculum to our institutional structures. The other principle that I would like to enunciate is that education is a public good. Strong and high quality public education system is the bedrock and energizer of a vibrant democracy. This includes that is why we have said that we should have enough resources to deal with it. We have gone to the extent of telling that we should quickly move towards a 6% of the GDP we brought into the education. And also, the policy encourages truly public spirited philanthropic efforts. And that is exactly what the example of the school to which I am today facing. You have the philanthropic effort, a public spirited philanthropic efforts. And that is the one really one looks for, even when it comes to private investments in the schooling system. The third principle is that the teacher is the center. And I know there are plenty of teachers here. We have made in the policy the teacher as the center of the education. Some may even find this principle puzzling because we are all aware of the importance of the child-centric education. The teacher being at the center of education and child-centric education, they are not in contradiction or in conflict. In fact, we cannot have a child-centric education without having teacher at the center of the education. The policy takes a comprehensive view and actions to restore teachers to their rightful high status in the society. These actions range from ensuring appointment of adequate number of teachers. We always suffer from the lack of number of teachers, the right type of teachers in many institutions in this country. Teachers being provided with pleasant and supportive working environment. There are cases even where they don't have a restroom for the teachers. Right resources being made available, giving equal importance to teachers of young children. It doesn't matter whether you teach the preschool or whether you took the middle school or your high school. You have to teach them. The teaching job is a very, very intricate issue, especially in school level. And we cannot differentiate between middle school, high school, and the primary school. That's what I'd like to say. and giving teachers autonomy. It's extremely important that once you have a curriculum, once you have got a curriculum, you have a pedagogy which you will create with your own experience and try to make sure that the best of the inputs are made available to the youngsters. So you should have some level of an autonomy for the teacher to experiment with the various approaches to pedagogy that will get the best benefit for the student. It includes a complete overhaul. That is where our policy today teaches a teacher or education system to be overhauled. One of the crucial connection is related to the higher education. What we have envisaged in the school policy is that the school teacher education will be made a part of the higher educational institutions immediately. Not only it raises the stature of the school teachers, why they should be studying in a separate EIs and things like that. They would like to be brought into the higher educational system, whether it is a university system, whether it is an Indian Institute of Technology kind of institution, Institute of Science, like their, their profession has to be placed at par with other options for graduates. It also recognizes that only the higher education system can provide school teachers with a knowledge base. You need a knowledge base for teaching youngsters, broad enough and deep enough to strengthen their schooling system. So, in essence, the policy empowers the teacher and supports her in every way possible to be the central actor in the education. The fourth principle is that the rigorous research on child development shall be one of the key elements. So far, we have not been addressing the question of cognitive sciences, neural sciences, and things of that kind. And over the past few decades, a lot have been done to understand the growth of a child, its brain, the ability to comprehend, and things of that kind. It is this age and developmentally appropriate design that has led to the envisioning of the 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 curricular structure, starting with the age of 3 and going up to the age of 18, with each stage particularly designed to be the most suited for that age cohort. Very soon, on this basis, we will have a national curricular framework. This year, 2021, we are going to have a new national curricular framework, and that will then become the basis of transformation of the curricular and pedagogical practices in the classroom. This will also include the transformation of our examination and testing mechanisms away from the testing of the road to the assessment of genuine learning, which will also be substantially reduce the unfortunate psychological burden of exams that millions of our children today carry. So there is going to be a transformation from the rote learning to the formative element of an evaluation and not the summative approach as it is practiced currently. The fifth principle is related to the fourth one, but still distinct. All research shows that the early childhood years, up to the eight years, in fact, by the age of 85 to 89% of the brain has already developed. So they are most important determinant for the individual future of life and well-being. It is in this period that the complex process of child development proceeds at an extraordinary phase. Remember, 82% by the age of 8, the brain has developed. And you have to make use of this window to make sure that the best of the inputs are provided to the children to understand the basics, the fundamentals. This is where the biological and the physical dimension, cognitive dimension, and the social and emotional dimension. The policy has rightly committed to ensuring that every child in our country get the highest quality care and education from the age of 3. And it is this group, 3 to 8, that from the foundational stage of 5 years, the 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 structure that I have referred to earlier. It was also pointed out that the policy takes specific measures even for the children below 3, age 3, even though it may be at home, but there are very specific guidelines on the policy as to how do you deal with a child after the age of 3, because the brain is growing at that particular point, there is a development take place, and they are critical developments so far as the cognition and ability to ability to understand things around is concerned. I truly believe that our success in these early childhood care years could be one of the most powerful forces for the improvement in the well-being of our society. I want this to be placed to this school, this community, because this is one of the most critical, important inputs that we are given in the policy. And this happens to be the early childhood care and education. And this is most critical if you have to tune a child to the future with respect to what choices are going to be for the future. The sixth principle that we must confront on what footing the massive deficit on our basic learning outcomes in school. You just look at the ASER reports and things of that kind. It shows the way in which how children are far below the expectation for a particular quality, whether it is literacy or numeracy. Every student must attain therefore foundational literacy and numeracy, the very basis of all subsequent learning of children. The policy has a comprehensive approach ranging from the ground programs to teacher training and committed set of volunteers. We have done very clear-cut guideline how the local volunteers, people who are expert in who know education, who can be oriented towards being an expert in a particular area, they have to be brought to bear. And we ensure that all children are able to read and write and do mathematics at age appropriate levels within the next 5 years. So we want to get rid of this vanity of illiteracy or whatever inadequate learning that happens in the current system with respect to the deficit in the basic learning processes of numeracy and literacy. This is absolutely critical because if the basic debit is not addressed, then millions of our children do not benefit from education further. The seventh principle is that to develop values, skills, capacities, and knowledge that are relevant not just for today but for the rapidly changing world of tomorrow. I do see a lot of these elements brought into your educational program in your school. We must demolish the hierarchy and hard separation between subjects. This is one thing which the committee has recommended. We must see knowledge as an integrated whole. It actually is, and understands its relation and use to the world around us. It is this principle that informs the curricular structure where all children will learn social sciences, humanities, physical sciences, mathematics, vocational sciences, art and music, and more, covering all dimensions of human life. It is the integrated, holistic, liberal education that is required for the capable citizen. So you do away with those artificial distinctions between science, arts, humanities, social sciences, culture, and things of that kind. You provide a holistic view of education at the school level. This is very, very critical, and this is one of the key elements in doing away with this artificial demarcation. The eighth principle is that the regulation, structuring, and design of also this is more to the teachers. They must be supportive, empowering, and energizing. The very idea of a regulation, structuring, and things of that kind. It must not be interfering, and we don't want an inspectorial approach to checking the educational quality by periodic checks and balances. The policy re-architects the system through the separation of the roles. This is where we have to bring separation of the roles between the regulation, operations, and academic standard setting. This will also ensure that such sharp focus of functions will lead to excellence along with the elimination of the conflict of interest. The policy also envisions the formulation of a school complex. You will see that there are several schools in which there are sometimes hardly 6 to 10 students. There's hardly one teacher. What kind of education can one can impart? So we have come to that there are very suboptimal in terms of resources, in terms of the teacher capacity, and therefore what the child can learn in the early age. So we have now made a major recommendation of how we can bring in the concept of a complex, a school complex, which are essentially the bringing together of multiple schools in approximate geography as one team. Each of the school in the second complex will continue to function where they are with full vigor, but they will now be a part of a complex, and this will enable better resourcing, productive resource sharing, and the formation of vibrant educational communities which will support each other in learning and improvement. So this is another important thing, certainly something worth examining by all schools with respect to the neighborhood and the way in which the educational systems is distributed in the neighborhood, and whether you can bring a synergy and whereby optimize the overall resource requirement and therefore overall improvement in the educational system around. The ninth principle is that the quality follows equity and inclusion. This is often raised with regard to is there equity and inclusion in the type of policy that we have initiated. The policy commits to ensuring equity and inclusion. It will drive the transformation of quality of the entire. We strongly believe that is the one that will drive the transformation of quality of the entire system. Some may find this principle puzzling, but it should not be. The world over, the clear experience and research is that the quality will happen if equity is made to happen, but not vice versa. Though to ensure equity and inclusion, policy has a range of measures focused on specific socio-economically disadvantaged groups, as well as large segments of population and geographies that are disadvantaged. The last principle in my mind is that the most important operating principle for the education system. This is the principle of trust. The policy is based on and intends to develop a culture of trust in the entire educational system. Because without trust, there is no empowerment, there is no energy, and there is no ownership. Therefore, whether we look at the policy's regulatory architecture, or look at the curricular approach, or we look at the institutional autonomy, it is all guided by trust. Such trust comes with concomitant accountability for all institutions and individuals. The principle of trust is simply that the people, when trusted, will not only do the right thing, but will also do it to the best of their ability and would then be willingly accountable for their actions, including rigorous public scrutiny. Imparting such action and behavior is what will truly transform the Indian education system. This is at the school level. I will dwell upon a little bit in the next few minutes on the higher education because I've been asked to give an overall picture of the national education policy. So I'll connect it with the higher education, but not too much in the detail. But what I would like to say, biggest policy shift in the higher education is the emphasis on holistic and multidisciplinary education system within a 4-year degree program. This is the undergraduate degree. We have recommended a 4-year degree program. Our present undergraduate system looks to achieve mastery in silos. You have a science, you have got physics, you have got mathematics, you have got pharmacy, you have got commerce, and so on. And the short-sighted policy would simply call for improving job readiness right from the day one. This policy recognizes that such an approach is dangerously out of step with a world that is rapidly changing. It recognizes that the students must be given a much broader multidisciplinary education and a foundation so that they can adopt and reinvent themselves as necessary over their entire working lives. I also want to stress the holistic aspect, which aims to develop all capacity. That's the most important aspect of undergraduate education, even as you come out of the secondary school education. Not just intellectual, but aesthetic, social, physical, emotional, and moral capacities. To an integrated manner, such a system is necessary to provide the kind of education that is required for the 21st century. The 4-year program, the first 2 years will provide students with the time to explore their interests and develop this broad base. Over the next 2 years, students will have the several options to prepare more directly for the world of work. These options include vocational education and also teacher education. I want to clearly emphasize why the policy advocates strongly for the vocational education and school teacher education within the higher educational system. With advances in technologies such as artificial intelligence and augmented reality, we clearly foresee an increasing number of hybrid jobs where a human's vocational skills will complement the capabilities of a high-tech equipment. Thus, the policy tries to change our conception of the vocational education and to rethink its value. The case for school teacher education within the higher education is equally, I did mention it about earlier, because it's essential to provide teachers with a sufficiently broad and deep knowledge base to strengthen our schooling system. The 4-year education will also give students the option to pursue undergraduate research and therefore an honors degree will grant them direct access to the PhD program. When it comes to research, when low output of quality research not only places India at a serious disadvantage on a short-term basis on strategic and economic fronts, but there is also a severe long-term risk because quality research is essential for quality education. The present fragmented system of small colleges cannot sustain quality teaching and research programs similar to the fragmented system in the schooling system, but with a different context. Thus, the policy calls for an urgent consolidation of higher educational institutions that focus on research and teaching, complemented by a system of degree granting autonomous colleges that focus on providing high quality education. So you have three-tier structure we have recommended for the higher education, the research university with teaching, a teaching university with research, and autonomous degree giving colleges. So between all the systems of the higher education ultimately has to fall within these kind of categories, depending on the type of criteria that we will set and periodically review. The policy also had with the critical need to better manage research at all levels. Research is extremely critical for the higher education part of it. The pure research, applied research, translational research, and research to address specific needs of industry of the nation. This management of research will be provided by a national research foundation, whose primary role will be to nurture a vibrant research ecosystem through adequate funding, mentoring, and careful monitoring. The National Research Foundation will ensure that the research proposals are funded purely on the basis of merit following a rigorous peer review system. This will support research in all disciplines, mind you, not only in engineering and sciences, including multidisciplinary research in arts, humanities, social sciences, engineering and technology, sciences and mathematics. It will also fund specific projects of critical importance, such as mitigating the importance of the climate change. Finally, I would like to say a few words about the reformed regulatory structure of higher education. These changes will ensure that the distinct functions of regulation, accreditation, funding, and academic standard setting will be performed by independent and empowered bodies to minimize conflicts of interest and to create the necessary checks and balances in the system. Of course, there will be a apex body to deal with these four verticals. The National Higher Education Commission of India, which is being now a bill is being brought to the Parliament to setting up of this new commission. The light but tight regulatory framework reflects one of the core principles of the policy. To improve our educational system, it is essential to specify clear goals and to ensure that the individuals are empowered to explore multiple ways to achieve these goals within the framework of accountability. At this particular point, I would like to stop, except for the fact that there are many other aspects of the policy that are available. Of course, for those who are interested, there is also the earlier draft version, which is much more elaborate, and also the final one that has been chosen was the Educational Policy 2020, which is about 65 pages or so. It does contain really many aspects of policies related to the language, policies related to the Indian system and Indian ethos, and how do we want to integrate it with education, the policies of flexibility, the product of ABC, the credit bank system, so that you can carry forward the credit from one institution to different institution. You can accumulate the credits, and then you can continue the education. So the continuity of education all through the life and the type of credit system that we have tried to introduce will go together so that at any point, at any location, any subject, you have the freedom to go learn and get a credit appropriately from that. So this kind of flexibility is also there. On the whole, as I said in the beginning, it's a policy where we integrate on one side, we also provide the flexibility on the other side. The exits options and entrance options are very well defined with respect to the flexibility that the learner would like to have. And all on the process of learning all through the life is an integral part of the concept that we have enunciated in the policy. And these together will really make what is needed for the 21st century. The minister's interest that we should have a 20-year policy, valid for 20-year policy, the one which becomes adoptable for 20 years or even 30 years. That is precisely we have tried to address in this connection. I'm happy to say also that after the reviews by the Honorable Prime Minister, he did several times and he went through the details, and most importantly, he provided some very useful inputs with respect to school and higher education. They have been all incorporated into the policy. Finally, his government has adopted this policy as the policy for the 21st century for India, and work has already started with regard to implementing it. every state has now started to review the policy vis-a-vis what the implementation strategy is going to be. Every institution is looking at it. Several of the higher education institutions are now trying to adopt it for the undergraduate education, and several of the schools have already started looking at it with respect to how do you go into a 3 to 18 year system, a 15-year schooling system where you do away with PUCs and things of that kind. So this work is already in progress right now. I'm sure your own school, which has several features of a modern educational system, will be able to easily adopt this policy and move towards the NEP 2020 to be in conformity with the kind of products that we would like to produce out of the system. Your system is already very productive, extremely thought out in terms of the kind of in the knowledge that you need to impart to the youngsters, and also make it a joy to learn, not a punishment to learn. And I think that is the essence of this policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you for giving us thorough insight of the NEP, sir. Thank you so much for that. Now it is my privilege to call upon Advocate Mr. Sami Durai of the Indian Association of Lawyers now to felicitate the guest today. Thank you. I request Advocate Sami Durai to the felicitation. You will be given a time limit of 2 minutes, sir.
Anita, if there is any technical issues, then probably I wanted Mr. Tiruchenduran sir or ATB boss sir to felicitate, followed by which Samidra sir will connecting us.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Now I invite our dignitary, Mr. ATB Bose, General Secretary of the Association of Management of Private School CBSE, to extend his felicitation.
Good morning to students, teachers, and other dignitaries who are here to facilitate at heart the most eminent person of our country, Padma Vibhushan Dr. K. Kasthurirangan. He is actually the mind behind our new education policy 2020. A very good morning to you, sir. Now, more than reading the actual NEP 65-page document, just in 30 minutes, in a very nutshell, with 10 points for school education, and also covering what these school children are going to face in the higher education in a 4-year degree course, which will be split into 2+2, where the second year they'll be having a lot of options to take vocational courses. Students, you must understand how deeply Dr. Kasthurirangan has embedded himself in this mission of preparing this. The first NEP came in 1968. The second one was on 1986, and a modification was done in 1992. But all this focused on vocational education, providing skill-based vocational education at elementary and secondary level. But miserably, they all failed. Now, Dr. Kasthurirangan and his team has taken it as a mission to achieve this with more specific to 21st century learning. Now, most of the commission, once they submit the report, they will totally forget about it because it is up to the government to implement. But here, Dr. Kasthurirangan, even after submitting the report and being approved by the cabinet in July, still is attending all meetings among educators, among policymakers, among teachers, and now for the first time among students. I think Queen Mira International School students, you're really very privileged lot. Now, not only that, he is addressing meetings and explaining all his thoughts. His draft in 2019 was built on foundational pillars of access, equity, quality, affordability, and accountability. And even after submission, a lot of deliberation is going on. Even after it is approved, when we give some suggestions, he still takes it up. Now, from AMS, as a General Secretary, I submitted a booklet to Dr. Kasthurirangan in the month of November. The approval was done in July, but we gave the booklet on November. Within a week, he not only acknowledged it, he also wrote about few salient points. I like to read this because that will give you a clear understanding of how deeply he is involved, and he still like to learn more and also make a different approach, not only by submitting the report, but constantly reviewing it and making it more palatable for young students like you. The letter says, this is a quick reaction to your booklet sent to me highlighting the features of National Education Policy 2020. My immediate response is one of genuine appreciation for the work of your members who have taken pains to analyze the policy in the context of its implementation. The level of insight you have gained on the different aspects of the policy is very well reflected in the comments you have made item-wise, many of them being pertinent and needing further discussion and thoughts. Now look here, a committee chairman, after 6 months of submission of the approval of the his report, he says it looks further discussion and thoughts has to be done into that. I will carefully go through the whole document, which will further enrich me in the context. Are we going to enrich him, such a enlightened person? We just heard his talk. Being a scientist, and now he is ready to reform our school education and college education. He says, it's further enriched me in the context of the ground realities of implementing the policy. Now, this implementing of the earlier policy was not taken up properly. That is why they all failed. Now, here is bent upon implementing the policy also. This certainly has considerable attention at our level, but the plurality and complexity of related issues opens up more avenues for critical examination and coming out with alternate approaches. Thank you very much. Now, this is a short letter, what Dr. Kasthurirangan acknowledged. It speaks volumes. So we can be rest assured, definitely this NEP, all its dimensions, if we just go on talking about the dimension, it is going to be endless, but still it is going to provide you a lot of things explain for you 21st century learners. Because Dr. Kasthurirangan believed that it will promote active pedagogy, which will focus on the development of core capabilities and life skills needed for 21st century. Now, that is what is more important thing. Another more important aspect of this NEP is there will be no hard separation of learning areas in terms of curricular, co-curricular, or extracurricular, or curricular areas, and all subjects, including arts, music, crafts, sports, yoga, community service, etc., will be curricular. This is what Dr. Kasthurirangan believed. So this is what we need. It is needed of the hour, but only the vision doesn't bring reality. Reality will be there only when people, Dr. Kasthurirangan, who heads it, who constantly makes a follow-up and spends more time to implementing it to the best. Now, students, as I told you, Queen Mira International School students, you are really fortunate to have an interaction with such a wonderful person, and whose mission is only to provide quality, innovative, and research-oriented education, and to equip you with the necessary skills and knowledge required for 21st century. Remember, he is our another Dr. Abdul Kalam. So consider him as your superhero and develop your talents so as to acquire all attributes what he has given to you. So, sir, it is indeed a great honor for me to facilitate you on behalf of our students, teachers, and management of Queen Mira International School. Thank you once again. Simple terms explained to students and teachers, and the fruitfulness which is going to go to them directly, your hard work will definitely be blessed. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. The next dignitary I would like to invite to extend his felicitation is Dr. R. Thiruchenduran, President of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam's Vision 2020. To you, sir.
Very good morning to all. Is audible?
Yes, sir, you're pretty much
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Great visionary leader, Kasthurirangan. Indeed, it's a great pleasure. My great salute to you, sir. I deem it my honor and humble gratefulness for having invited and addressed in front of this great gathering to my beloved brother, Mr. Abhinav. Thank you, my beloved brother. Sir, today, Dr. Kalam's dream has been realized in the soil by your great. So I pray the God Almighty that you have to reach the glorious levels of heights of vision. So you proved that you are the greatest asset of our nation. And our national flag flies in your hearts. Once again, my great salute to you, sir. I could see, in my view, I would see this policy to create an enlightened society. The enlightened society has three components: education system with education with a value system, religion transformation, economic development. All the institution must empower the youth to become the part of the knowledge society through this policy to achieve developed nation. So you have done a great tribute to our nations. Even a mediocre people can bring glory to the nation. So every student has a great vision. Every student wants to realize the vision. But there are three titanic forces which are the barriers of these youngsters. But this policy to remove their these three titanic forces. I think three titanic forces: one is the negative thought, number two is fear of failure, and three is fear of getting degraded by others. This policy flood their subconscious with the positive thoughts. They can wash away the negative thoughts from their subconscious mind. They can flood their subconscious with positive thoughts, and they can through this system, sir, through this policy. It's really is a fantastic and just to reach the students whatever they want to achieve in their vision, they can achieve it in this policy, sir. So we all know that is hidden in a tiny grain. The most beautiful butterfly emerges from the least. An enchanting statue is concealed in a lifeless rock. The sweetest honey is produced by the smallest bees, but all the great things done in an extraordinary way. But you have done in a very extraordinary way to make our nation as a developed nation. Sir, my hearty congratulations, my heartfelt greetings and wishes to you, sir. You can you do wonders in the field of education. You have done it, sir, actually. Once again, the youth on behalf of the entire youth, once again, my great salute to you. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, Thiruchenduran, sir. I now deem it an honor to invite our next dignitary with 3 decades of rich experience in the field of education, Dr. C. Chandran, Chairman, Queen Mira International School, to extend felicitations.
Good morning, sir. I'm really happy to share some of my thoughts in line with policies. It is really delighted and proud in Dr. Bose. No word to compliment or appreciate your efforts in framing the new education policy. I would say myself, I'm basically a professor of a university holding 3-4 education institutions strongly believe that your new education policy is primary and oneness. I was able to see the earlier reformations in 68 till today. All those things have done, as sir said, they very good policies, but they miserably failed in executions. See your work with your full blood and energy. And research-oriented thought and your expectations about the future generation. I strongly believe you put all your soul and blood to share the education policy. However, programs in restructuring the system, no, so far no, previous policy have done it. As you mentioned, 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. It's a restructuring of it. There should be an ultimatum of K-12 board only. There may have some feelings. Have a common efficiency testing, whether it is for the professional courses or courses. Why we should have a double system of board less efficiency testing? You mentioned your own policy. You have a affordability and accountability. Let me have a look on affordability. When you say that efficiency system by having dual testing, that is the board as well as national testing schemes, I think people are focusing only on the testing, national testing examination rather than the board. Our board may not have any other importance. So, opinion may be either it is a board exam or national efficiency testing. Any one of the system may be more suitable. It may align with your own thoughts of affordability and accountability. And my second observation is what we have put the efforts in restructuring the school education, whether we could able to match the fellowship level. I mean, K-12 to fellowship level. It is not having a very activity. The system so far, your new policy may give you only one policy, but even then, when the as a professor, I could able to see the people at not giving the importance as they put their school education. You have given adequate scope how the fellowship should be, how the teacher should be. I'm really very proud of you, sir. Point for you, what I have observed is that point. Knowingly or unknowingly, I have a group of education institutions. My word to here is the asset of is the teachers. Very selecting the core competent teachers, irrespective of breed, caste, color, even sometimes degree. If they are capable, they could able to make our students in the same thoughts of the management, be able to. One of my consultants told one, you select the teachers he should look into two aspects. One is filler and pillar. If we find a pillar, you select them even when there is no vacancy. So I'm really proud of you, sir, when you say that the teacher is more important for any educational institutions. We, the private managements, could able to do with a full-fledged manner in such teach. I have my own doubt on the side of the government. Kindly, strongly, those segment also to develop. Then, of course, the purpose of education is not just imparting the knowledge. Then the focus we are given in the school education, the current school education is, they are aiming to go for medical or engineering, and they develop their children only on that. As you rightly pointed out in the new policy, especially giving a higher focus on vocational courses, the knowledge that in the reality, we may not have the purpose of education. So it's a really aspect which you have initiated on that respect, sir. I'm really proud of you, sir. I wanted to say that you have done a very excellent outcome education for so many other aspects and approved receiving your Padma Bhushan, and your record, your remarkable record in the scientific research also. So I'm the chairman of the board. I'm really delighted and excited in sharing my thoughts with you. In our own school segment, we used to say that it is our home, the teacher, and we together is a home. And I'm further proud to say it's a first meeting you are sharing your thoughts with the school. That school is having school that is Akun Mira. There is no limit for my happiness and my satisfaction. As the chairman of the school, I won't say compliment, appreciations down to the your thought that shows the real caliber, the real veteran, the real love of your education. Thank you very much, sir. I'm very much thankful to you.
Thank you so much, sir. It is now my privilege to call upon Ray of the Indian Association of Lawyers now to felicitate.
Good morning, everybody. I'm happy to offer my felicitations on behalf of our Lawyers Association. Today's chief guest, Dr. Kasthurirangan. Dr. Kasthurirangan is a renowned scientist in the field of space research. We are proud to point out that Dr. Kasthurirangan, from our place, he has his origin in Nellai district and he was born in Kerala. So really, we are fortunate, and you have enlightened with your valuable insights, sir. I'm grateful. This policy will be a great help to underprivileged people, students, especially physically challenged students. I'm grateful, and not only that, Dr. Kasthurirangan has received honorable degrees from 16 universities to honor his contribution to satellite communication and space science. He has published more than 200 papers in national and international journals in the area of astronomy, space science, space application, and he has edited 6 books. Really, the dear students, you have a very great opportunity to listen to outstanding scientists and educationalists. He is mainly responsible for drafting National Education Policy NEP 2020, about which we discuss today. On behalf of all of us, I extend my sincere appreciation for excellent contribution to education. Thanks to organizer of the program, especially Chairman Mr. Chandran sir, Managing Director Brother Dr. M. Abhinav Chandran, and the Director Sujata Guptan, all other, especially and other for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much. The dreams, lofty dreams, as you dreams, you will become. Thank you for the enlightening everything, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Samidure sir. We now have our student council to raise their queries to our guest speaker, Dr. Krishnasamy Kasthurirangan. I now invite Alvina to pose her first question.
A very good morning to one and all here. I am Alvina from grade 11, and here are my questions. The first question is as follows to sir. How did the idea of implementing NEP come into your mind, sir? Was that your dream or a mission?
Hello, can you hear?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. Okay. Is there any other question or this is the question?
There's one more question as follows. So can I tell it out or?
Yeah, tell that also.
Yes, sir. So the first question is, how did the idea of implementing NEP come into your mind? And the second one is as follows. How will you describe NEP's first product, that is the students, after benefiting all the highlighting features of the national education policy?
First thing is, this is, as I told you in the beginning of my introductory remarks, that the idea of implementing NEP came because of the fact that I hope you are not making a distinction between creating an NEP and implementing NEP. I don't think I'm going to talk much about the NEP implementation. It has just started. There is no, and every state will adopt in its own way the implementation strategy depending on their development, resources available, and other social and cultural factors. So I don't want to get into that because there is no universal of observation which I can make with respect, except for the fact that these are all policy frameworks or policy items which are possible to implement by every state, but they have to adopt it and then reinvent where necessary to ensure that it conforms to the local imperatives and local conditions. So far as the NEP itself, the creation is concerned, as I told you, the Honorable Minister and the present government had already promised that there will be a new education policy when they came to power, and they wanted to fulfill it. Actually, this work was in progress even 4 years before our committee started the work. I want to say that Srimati Honorable Smriti Irani's time itself, there were a lot of groundwork done at the district and many other levels. Consultation processes were there. And then 4 years later, they appointed a committee under Mr. T.S.R. Subramanian, the former cabinet secretary. He submitted a report which preceded our report, but there were some comments and there were certain objections, and though the government thought it appropriate relook at this because these questions came primarily from the parliamentarians. So they wanted to look at it. There should be no political things which will cause a derailment of this kind of a policy. So that is the time in which about 2 to 3 years back, they told us to look at it. We initially thought we can do it in 6 months, but ultimately it took nearly 1.5 years before doing this. The reason primarily was the process of consultation we adopted. We wanted to make sure that all segments of the society, all types of organization was stakeholders in education, and all other kinds of individuals, educationists, academicians, the general aspects of people who are interested in the development and knowledge as of a knowledge society. We had to consult most of them across the spectrum. It did take time. Hello. Okay, so that is that is the so idea didn't come from me. I was asked to look at it. So I just want to say that. And we did it. We had a very, very erudite committee. I had with me Professor Manjul Bhargav. He is a field medalist from Princeton University in mathematics. One of the most really versatile person who was specialized in mathematics, and field medal, as you know, is equivalent to Nobel Prize in physics or chemistry. So that is the level. So he won the field medal. He's a full professor at Princeton University. I had M.K. Sridhar, a very versatile educationist who has spent his lifetime in education, director of one of the centers in Bangalore University. Professor Vasudha Kamath, who was of the SNDT, the Women's University in Mumbai. She was the vice chancellor. And there were similar then Professor Katimani, another of those, but who understood the educational aspects with respect to the tribal people. So he was he had in-depth understanding of that. Mashara Sarif, who was another person who was very good in the aspects of the languages, and he helped us very much in formulating the policy related to languages. So like that, if you ask me, there were extraordinary people in the committee. They helped us. And we, of course, consulted several people, as I told you, individuals, organizations, institutions, and also even religious sects and other things. We had discussions with Christian missionaries. We had been with Sikhs, with Jains, with many and many others. So we covered all segments of the society to make sure that we have the representative inputs. We properly factored it, and in a sense, the acceptance by the majority of this particular thing is because they were fully aware that we have factored their views into the policy. And I should also say, during the entire period of our formulation of this policy, we never had even one instance where the government said you do this or that. That kind of thing didn't happen. I had the full control of the policy, and we did what we thought is appropriate for this country. Probably that is the reason why the policy seems to be acceptable for the majority of the people who understand what it means for this country for the future. What the other point that you are trying to say is the student benefiting from the highlighting features. I want to say, as I told you, you are preparing a youngster to be a total person when he comes out of the education. And really, there is no coming out of the education. You have the facility to go back to education. It doesn't matter. Even at this age, I try to read and to understand things because I think it's useful for me to talk to the you people. You are updated very much with respect to the today's knowledge. I have to be at your level if I have to dialogue with you. So obviously, the learning is a continuous process. There is no way. And this particular policy, I want to say, will equip you to learn and how to learn, and also unlearn what you don't want to know, because there are things which becomes not very useful in the context of journal. So you should be able to unlearn, you should be able to learn, you should be able to relearn, and you have to update yourself. So this whole process is embedded in the concept of this policy, both through the school education, through the undergraduate. I consider undergraduate education as a major transformation in the context of how we want to reorient organization to prepare yourself for the 21st century skill, whether it is communication, whether it is innovation, whether it is originality, it is problem solving, whether it team spirit. You look at every element today which are critical for a kind of a job that you undertake. You need to be prepared for it. And this particular policy has addressed this aspect of the 21st century skills. So these are the kind of a thing. So these are the students will benefit in several ways. The understanding the issues of the education, the understanding the issues with the youngsters are facing, preparing the youngsters for the 21st century, and knowing fully well we are going to have half of the population below 35, a demographic advantage which we should capitalize, and to make sure that there is a system which updates the knowledge for the youngster, and there is a system which is preparing the student for the knowledge. That system is also reconfigured constantly. So these are all part and parcel of the kind of things that are there. We have not left what is unfinished from the previous policy also. I want to say that there were some very good points from Kothari Commission and other reports. We have certainly factored them. We have adopted it in the present context, and we are sure that they also will be most relevant in the context of implementing the present policy. So these are the 2 points that I may like to say from my point of view, what you wanted to know.
Thank you, sir. Next we have Kritika to pose her question.
Good morning, sir. So I have two questions from my side. The first one is what could be the major differences that we could see from in the students who are passing out from the old and the new educational systems? And the second one is from the experiences of your personal life. Can you just share how did you handle rejections or any kind of bitter situations when you were at the peak of your success?
Well, I don't want to say the how will the new students will have an advantage with respect to old students. One thing is old students will continue up to a certain point when the curricular framework is available, when the pedagogy is available. They won't make. They're all going to enter into the new system. It depends on what stage of the education is, whether it is in the middle school, whether it is in the higher school, whether it is in the undergraduate school, or later on. So you will, but subsequently you have to adopt to it. This is not a big deal. If you are asked to learn something and you have to ask to relearn something, I think you are still fresh enough. Your mind is sharp enough, able to focus on new ideas. So I don't see the students to be divided into old students and new students. In fact, I want to say this: you will learn the new methods quickly and adopt yourself. That part of it, I have no doubt at all. And but only thing is, there are students who even ask me, "It's so exciting, the new policy. Can we not go back?" They had already, for example, going to go to the higher secondary third year, for example. Can we not go back to the second or the first year of the higher secondary of the secondary so that I can relearn and learn according to the new policy? So if that kind of a determination is there among the youngsters, I don't think the first question that they how will they have a disadvantage. I don't think the modern youngsters can be put to any disadvantage. They have the resourcefulness to adopt themselves to new requirements, and if it is 1 or 2 years later, they will still do it. And you are never late in life. I want to say there are times in which I have thought I've lost a year there or I have lost something there, but ultimately I find that is not a zero sum game. So it all depends on your determination. So don't think that you're going to lose anything because you studied in the old system, because you will adopt a new system very quickly and learn all the aspects of the new system. And you will also learn to forget the old system where it is not necessary for you to move forward in life. That is the first thing. So far as my experience is concerned, I had the privilege that this country gave me, the people, the big leaders of this country gave me, like Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, Dr. Satish Dhawan, Dr. U.R. Rao. These people, as well as the institutions and the kind of leaders that we have. I had the privilege of working association with prime ministers. I started with Narasimha Rao, my position in the space secretary as the chairman of ISRO. After my Narasimha Rao, I worked with Devagowda, then with Gujaral and the Honorable Gujaral. After the Honorable Vajpayee ji, and later on Honorable Manmohan. So 5 prime ministers I worked directly. As I'm not working directly with them. So you interact with them and you give them brief. You are responsible to them. That is how it was. I found that's extraordinary encouragement, and you learn. And each of the thing was a different responsibility. Working as a directing a satellite was one experience. Working as heading an institution was another. As chairman of ISRO, I had to learn much more because you need to learn technology, you have to learn science, you have to learn engineering and the management, leadership, interrelation relationship with other departments of the government, working with the political system, working with international relations. So you've got several dimensions to the type of experience you gain to be a chairman of ISRO. Then I was put into the Rajya Sabha, if a policy making, a legal institution that makes the legal structure for this country. You learn so much about how the members think, of the parliamentarians think about the many things we do on the executive side by the government, and how do they translate that into meaningful laws, which will then drive the country with regard to the legal structure, which we have to conform to within the constitutional provisions. So that was a very, very significant transformation I got in understanding from one segment of the executive job to a legal legislative job. Then the next one was for planning. The Planning Commission of India is a very unique body, and I was a member of the Planning Commission for Science, Technology, Environment, Agriculture, Research, and so on. That was a very unique, because you understand the totality of this country, what it means from the economic point of view, developmental point of view, social point of view. So multiple dimensions of this country in its totality, you see a perspective view. Because the moment you get this kind of three levels of experiences, running a department, being a part of a legislative body, and then being a part of a planning system, I think you know fairly well about this country, what it is, whether it is social, whether it is economic, whether it is cultural, whether it is strategic, whether it is international. So that is the amount of things with which I got this responsibility of doing the space for this policy part of it. Even though if there are people who ask me, which is in terms of levels of complexity of the responsibility you have held, where do you place yourself with education policy versus the rest? I would say it is certainly one of the very difficult problems to define an education policy for India with its complexity, diversity, and its whatever you call it. I think, in a sense, the education policy is the one which I may consider as the mother of all the complexities that I faced in life. That's all I can say.
Yes, thank you. So finally, we have Rijita with us to represent the student community to raise her questions to you.
Good afternoon, sir. I have a couple of questions. Like, this is a more personal one. Which gave you more satisfaction, sir? Being an Indian scientist in ISRO or the head of the NEP team in India?
I think you should look at the thing with respect to, if I was a youngster at the schooling level, you ask me what interests you most. I would like to say that I would like to go in at 4 o'clock and play football. I liked that at that particular time. When I was running ISRO, I loved ISRO because there are so many challenges, so many interesting events, and the country is looking at you for every milestone that you score in this country. And so you had a kind of a thrill, not only challenge, not only difficulties, not only setbacks, but there is also a thrill. Even in setbacks, there were challenges with which we overcame. So I think it had at that time probably the best of the challenge that I could think of. When I went to Rajya Sabha, I was a little nervous because there is a political system. If you make a wrong statement, there it will all appear in the paper, and there could be even discussion at the national level. I wanted to avoid too much of visibility because of my Rajya Sabha membership. So you have to weigh everybody. But my colleagues in the Rajya Sabha, they were exceptional. Whether it doesn't matter whether it is Congress, whether it is BJP, whether it is DMK, whether it is Anna ADMK, most of the members, they were always very helpful to me. In fact, they also told me where exactly I should speak and where I should not speak. And I think there is a very good guideline I got from Rajya Sabha and how to make discretion, to be discretionary in my make responses to things in the world. Then when it came to the planning commission, it was a very other kind of it. You look at the whole country and this. That was a challenge at that particular point to learn India in its totality with respect to all the developmental imperatives. I think it was very thrilling at that particular. Finally, when it came to this, as I said, I call the challenge from the education policy as a mother of all the complexities. On the complexity side, there is no question on that. If it is excitement, the excitement can come only when the product is sold. In the case of education, the policy right now has been placed to public domain. The Honorable Minister, Shri Dr. Pokhriyalji, told me that 80-85% of the people have accepted your thing. Others have small differences which we can fine tune. So by and large, the nearly the 100%, not 100%, I can, in fact, 100% means I'll not be telling the truth to you. Substantial number has finally accepted the thing. The thrill comes from the fact that here's a very complex problem. It is a very complex job. You have to do it with multiple inputs from various things. You have to bring synergy into the thinking. You have to bring coherence into the thinking. The processes has to be pragmatic. Doing all that particular thing, finally you put it to a public test. That is a fire test for us. And you put it in the public domain. You got 2.5 lakhs of responses on the public domain for this particular policy. And 70-80%, according to the Honorable Minister, is accepting it. And the Honorable Prime Minister proclaiming that this policy will be accepted and implemented in spirit, letter, and spirit. I think you cannot have a better compliment for this committee which did this job. I'm not only me, the entire committee which did this job, and many people who supported that kind of a thing. Even the people as was mentioned by Professor Bose, with respect to various kinds of inputs that were made available from the management of the school and how things of that kind. I think they were all very important. But I think at the end of the time, even though the implementation will take its own time, in fact, it's a 10-year time frame for the implementation, I have all the reason to believe that this particular policy is accepted, it will be taken forward, and it will see a different India with this particular policy as a knowledge society.
Yes, sir. Sir, though like many people have accepted this, I think still there are some drawbacks and still recommendations are coming in for some changes. So will there be any future amendments like if it's accepted?
I think so long as man continues to grow and he is not static, his mind continues to expand, I think he will always respond to changes. So there is nothing like a finality. There is nothing like even universe is not static. It is expanding. It is accelerating. So there is no question of finality about anything we say about as human beings. So be rest assured, this will be continuously reviewed. There is an institutional framework for a highest body. It will continuously review the way in which the policy is being implemented, where we are facing bottlenecks, where we think the removing the thinking process has to be a little different, fine tuning is necessary. This will be a continuous process to upgrade, update, and review the policy as a part of its implementation. If we don't do it, I think we are mindset and we just cannot progress. So let me be assured that this will be continuously reviewed, and there will be continuous changes. But my only hope is that there will be no substantial changes, which essentially means there may not be many political issues with respect to this. Even small things like a language and other things, we have sorted it out. We have explained to them what we meant by that. So I don't think those are issues, but there will be certainly scope for changes from learning, from implementing, and we have to be open to that, discuss it, and make sure that the appropriate changes are made. And this will be a continuing process in this policy.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I invite Ms. Sujata Guptan, Director Academics of Premier International School, to deliver her work.
Good afternoon, sir. A very good afternoon, everyone. And it's really a blessed day, I would say, to have the gracious presence of the Honorable Chief Guest of the Day, Speaker of the Day, Dr. Kasthurirangan with us. Sir, in Team TMIS is very fortunate enough to be the first school to get your blessings on this auspicious and with a very enlightening speech about his highlights of NEP. As you rightly said, nothing is permanent, everything undergoes change, there is no finality, and we do agree with that, the change will be expected. So as you said, NEP is all about bringing in a holistic development, and QMIS is also in that path of bringing in a holistic development in children. If you have any questions or anybody questioning the implementation of NEP, you can always take QMIS as your model school, because QMIS being a CBSE school, then everybody questioned that will there be a possibility to bring in such a holistic development. We marched forward, we took up the Council of International Schools accreditation process, and we have bravely crossed the membership process, preparatory evaluation, and now into the final accreditation process. All that was possible by taking the brave move of bringing in the holistic development, and now stands as the one and only CBSE school with the CIS membership accreditation process. So we can always stand there as a model school for you, sir, to prove that NEP is always implementation is possible. And thanks for being with us and enlightening us. And I could see that there was a huge team that has worked for this NEP, a very youthful team, which has thought beyond the centuries, because you thought about every nook that the young kids in the future generation would require for. There is nothing you haven't touched. So such a great policy. Yes, of course, there might be amendments, and we are also eagerly looking for the roadmap for the staggered implementation of this NEP. Wholeheartedly, we welcome this NEP for the betterment of the society and betterment for the future. Thank you for being with us, sir. And I have to thank your PA, Mr. Ramesh, for coordinating with our school and with you, and to make it happen, because it was not the session that had planned only after NEP. we were following with your office right from the, I think like for the past 3-4 years, we had a constant follow-up with your office. And thanks to the virtual platform, today we were able to make it happen. Thank you, Mr. Ramesh, for being such a like bridge between Dr. Kasthurirangan and our school. And my wholehearted thanks to Ms. Jaya Dinagaran. And I think not much new about it. You're a proud sibling who's here as a very strong pillar of Queen Mira right from the day of its a year after the inception of Queen Mira. She is such a rocking teacher here for many of our students. And with her support only we were able to get your appointment, and today it happened. And a special note of thanks to our principal, Ms. Kalpana Karthik, for all that support that she has extended in this successful conduct of the event. I also extend my warm thanks to all the guests of the day, Advocate Pamitarai sir, Tirishandaran sir, Mr. ATP Bose, and our beloved chairman, Mr. Dr. Chandran, and our managing director, Mr. Abhinav Chandran, for all their presence and motivating the NEP with their blessing words. I also take it as my pleasure to thank our team, our teachers, who are celebrating their Bogi by being present in this occasion, and students and parents for their presence on this occasion. I also extend my heartfelt thanks for the technical team headed by Mr. Rajiv for the successful implementation as the conduct of this event. Thank you everyone for the wonderful session we all had enjoyed. Thank you, Dr. Kasthurirangan sir, once again for blessing us on this occasion, for giving us an enlightenment with this highlights of NEP. Thank you, sir. Anita, over to you.
Anita? Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this wonderful session. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. That's it, everybody. Leave the meeting. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, teachers. Bye. Thank you, teachers. Bye.
Thank you, teachers.
Thank you,
Bye.
children. Thank you.